Coming to the history about our design patterns, the first author who introduced these design patterns are nothing but Christopher Alexander in the year of 1979 with the name of the timeless way of building. Based on that, the Gang of Four author continued and experiments on that, and they introduced this design pattern with the name of elements of reusable object oriented software. Those are the four authors we called as a Gang of Four. They are Erich Kama, Richard Johnson, and John Wilsitz. In the year of 1994, they published these design patterns with the name of elements of reusable object oriented software. Uh, they capitalized on the work of Alexander in this similarly published on software design patterns. Coming to the in detail about these design patterns, in the year of 1994, these design patterns are described by using the four attributes by Gang of Four authors. Those are name, problem, solution, and consequences. We already seen about these four attributes. What the name says is it will describe the name of the pattern, and its solution consequence is in a word of a two word in a word or a two, and the problem describes when to apply these patterns, and the solution describes the element that make up the design and based on the relationship, responsibilities, and collaborations, and the consequences will say about the advantages and disadvantages of using these design patterns. Based on these four, the Gang of Four authors, based on these four attributes, they described the design patterns. Later, many of the experiments has done on these design patterns, and in the year of 2002, it has been described based on the few of the concepts, based on the few of the attributes. They describe these design patterns. Let us see that. So, in the year of 2002, based on the previous year of 1994, the Gang of Four author described based on the four attributes. Along with that, few of the attributes added and described these design patterns. Grant's book is the latest offering about these design patterns. Is a very Java centric. He developed the gang of he develops the Gang of Four's attributes to the great granularity and adds the Java specifics. And some of the attributes are pattern name, as same as we say about pattern name in our gang of by our Gang of Four authors, that which will says about the name of the pattern that describes, and the symphonies it will conveys the essentials of the solution. In the context will say about the problem and the address of that problem, that to add these patterns, and fourth, it will become as a reason to or not to use a solution, and solution will give a general purpose solution to the problem. And coming to the implementation, it will give the importance consideration that when we using a solution for that problem, and the consequences will give as same as we say about the consequences in our previous year by Gang of Four authors, that which will say about the good and bad, that is nothing but a advantages or disadvantages or positives or negatives of using these solutions. Java API usage, it will give the example for the core Java APIs, and code example based on our self explanation, based on our either C or either C++ or Smalltalk or Java. And related pattern, it will say about the self explanatory. Based on these attributes, we will describe our design patterns. And coming to the classification of design in previously these classification has done by this way. Based on this way, the classification of design patterns has been done. That is nothing but fundamental pattern, creational patterns, partitional patterns, structural patterns, behavioral patterns, concurrency patterns. Based on these 6 ways of classification, the design patterns has been classified. After that experiments made on these, the Gang of Four author has been reduced into 3. Those are nothing but creational, structural, and behavioral. Based on these 3, we are going to classify our design patterns. So this is about the history about our design pattern. Coming to our next concept in our conclusion of our design pattern, that is nothing but the pattern, community, and invention. In this we speak about our author who introduced about this pattern language. Um, Christopher Alexander is the artist who first studied patterns in buildings and communities and developed a pattern language for generating them. Um, his work has inspired, so it's fitting worthwhile to compare our work. Then we will look at others' work in software related patterns. Coming to the Alexander pattern languages, there are many ways. There are many ways in which our work is like Alexander's. Both are based on observing existing systems and looking for patterns in them, and both have templates for describing patterns, and both rely on natural language and lots of examples to describe patterns rather than formal language, and both gives rationals for each other. But there are just as many ways in which our works are different. People have been making buildings for thousands of years, and there are many classic examples to draw upon. We have been making software systems for a relative short time, and few are considered classics. Alexander gives an order in which his pattern should be used. We have not. Alexander pattern emphasizes the problem they address, whereas design pattern describe the solution in more detail. Alexander claims his pattern will generate complete buildings, where we do not claim that our patterns will generate complete programs. When Alexander claims his pattern will generate complete buildings, Alexander pattern emphasizes the problem they address, whereas design pattern describes the solutions in more detail. We do not claim that our pattern will generate complete programs. When Alexander claims when we consider design as a house, simply applying his pattern on after another one after another, he has a goal similar to those object oriented designs methodologies who give step by step rules for design. And this Alexander doesn't deny the need for creativity. Some of his patterns require understanding the living habits of the people who will use the buildings, and his belief in the poverty of design implies a level of expertise beyond the pattern language itself. But his description of how pattern generate design implies that a pattern language can make the design process determined and repeatable. The Alexander point of view has helped us focused on design trade-offs, the different forces that help shape of a design, that to make a shape that which makes us to help to design a shape. From Alexander point of view, the pattern that we have learned in our concepts is not a form a pattern language. It will give a variety of software design that people build. It's harder to see how we would provide a complete set of patterns, one that offers step by step instruction for designing an application. We can do that for certain classes of application, such as report writing or making a form entry system, but our catalog is just a collection of related patterns. We can't pretend it's as a pattern language. This is about the pattern community in an invention. Coming to an invitation of our design pattern, in that what can you do if you are interested in a pattern? The first one is uses them and look for other pattern that fit the way you design. That means in this article about a pattern will be coming up in the next few years, so that there will be plenty of source for a new patterns, right? Develop our vocabulary of patterns and use it, and we can use it when we talk with other people about your design, and we can use it when we think and write about them. And the second one is being a critical consumer. In this, the design pattern catalog is the result of hard work, and not just occurs but that of dozens of reviewers who gave us a feedback. and in this we can spot a problem or believe more explanation is needed. The same goes for any other catalog of patterns, and we give the feedback of about that to the authors. One of the great thing about pattern is that they move design decisions out of realm of inventions or inventing of these patterns. um, and in the third one is look for patterns that we see and write them down and make them a part of your documentation, show them to other people, and we can have how to do in a search in a research lab to find the patterns. That is nothing but an invention. Coming to the last one, a parting thought. This is the last concept of our conclusion of our design patterns and our syllabus. In this, the best design will use many design patterns that do dovetail and intertwine to produce a greater whole. As Christopher Alexander says, it's a possible to make building by stringing together a pattern in a rather loose way. And a building may like this is an assembly of pattern. It's not a dense, it is not a profound, but it is also possible to put patterns together in such a way that many patterns overlap in the same physical space. And the buildings is very dense, it has many meanings captured in a small space, and throughout this density it become profound. So, this is about our parting thought of our design patterns. So, this is our last part of our 5th unit. So, from this concept we have completed our 5th unit of our design pattern.